I think so.
All right, let's do this. Welcome, everybody. This is the Production Technician Youth Apprenticeship webinar hosted by AJAC. My name is Aaron Farrell. I am the Marketing Communications Manager for AJAC. I have been with AJAC for about 7 years now, so it was my first gig out of college, and I'm still here. Joining me today are three of my colleagues, Bree, Heather, and Tracy. And let's start with Heather. And Heather, you can kind of introduce yourself and where you work.
All right, well, hi, my name is Heather Collins. I'm with AJAC as their regional program manager for the Central Washington area. So programs in Yakima, Moses Lake, and West Valley. I've been with AJAC since December, so still pretty new, but I'm loving it.
Awesome. And second up is Tracy. Tracy, why don't you tell everybody what you do at AJAC?
Hi, I'm Tracy Turcotte. I'm the Youth Program Manager for the West Side, depending on how you're looking at the screen, if it's West Side or East Side. But prior to Heather joining us, I covered the state, and I work with our students on a daily basis, making sure to work with their employers, their classes, checking in with the teachers. I joke about being a den mother to many. Now Heather gets to share that responsibility that's there. So we're glad to have her on board to help with around the state. So you saw my name on a lot of the flyers, a lot of questions. So afterwards, you know, you'll have my emails at the end too. But anyways, that's me. That's what I do, work with kids.
Awesome. And last but certainly not least, Bree, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everybody what you do at AJAC?
Yeah, hey guys, I'm Bree Durham. I'm the Director of Youth Apprenticeship for AJAC. So number one, I'm Tracy and Heather's biggest cheerleaders, making sure that they're able to, they have the tools and the things they need to do their job. I also do a lot of high-level partnership work with all your school districts to make sure your teachers and some of the upper level leadership at your schools, you know, keep this program for years to come. Also help getting employers on board and kind of help them navigate through the system of how to take on a youth apprentice in all different parts of the state. And obviously just kind of crusade that youth apprenticeship is a really, really big, important thing that we need to keep going in our state and have other people join us in that effort. So that's kind of what I do. And yeah, help with all the safety questions on the job training questions that you may have. So yeah, that's what I do in a nutshell.
Awesome. And you know, for the students and the parents that are joining us on this webinar, you folks will interact with Tracy and Heather the most. They are the most hands-on with our apprentices, as well as our parents as well. And Bree's kind of overseeing everything. So you guys will get to know Heather and Tracy a lot more as you progress into the program. So with that, let's get this started here. So before we kind of jump into youth apprenticeship and production technician, we just want to give you a quick overview about who is AJAC. We are a nonprofit organization. We started in 2008, so we are very young compared to all of the apprenticeship programs that are out there. Our program, our entire apprenticeship program is not only union or non-union. We're actually a mix. We have support from both union employers and non-union employers across the state of Washington. And our bread and butter really is those small to medium-sized companies. Those are the ones who tend to really need the extra help, the extra labor, particularly from those who are younger adults. These are the employers that are really driving our industries that we're doing apprenticeship in. So kind of how our apprenticeship programs are structured is that we are an employer-sponsored apprenticeship program, which means our employers are the ones who select their employees to go into the program. It's going to be a little bit different than maybe some of your traditional apprenticeships, such as plumbers, drywall fitters, and so on. So across the state of Washington, we have, I think it's technically right around 282 employers that have signed on to work with AJAC across the state of Washington. Out of those employers, we have anywhere around 350 to 400 apprentices at any given time. And then out of those apprentices, we have about 100 youth at any given time, which is great. So we're at around 20% of all of our apprentices are high school students, which is great. Youth apprenticeship, this is going to be the 4th year that we have had a youth apprenticeship program in Washington State. So we have seen a lot of growth. We only started, I think, with about 15 youth apprentices, and last year I think we had close to around 95. So the growth has been great. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bree, who can kind of talk to you guys about all the school districts that have kind of come on board over the years.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Yeah, so as you can see here, just some high level like data so you guys can see how much we've grown and how much this program is taking off across the state. Is that we started in 2016, 2017 with kind of the governor asking us to pilot a few programs in the state to just test out if youth apprenticeship could be a thriving thing for the students and the employers of Washington State. And because we do so much dynamic work with so many different employers, manufacturing employers across the whole state, we decided to take on the challenge and see if we could listen to our employers and then also partner with the school districts and come up with a concept that was pretty unique. And so we decided to launch in this 2016-2017 school year at Tacoma with the Tacoma School District, and then also West Valley School District, which is based in Yakima Valley. And we only had about 15 kids. We had a bunch of subject matter experts from both the school district and on the employer side that were informing the process of how we put our program together. So that's why you have certain classes and certain job rotations that we'll talk about a little bit later as to why they're so important, because you had people from industry and our employers really tell us this is how you're going to succeed in this career pathway. So now that you can see we've grown a lot, obviously that year was really successful, and so we moved on and grew, and every year we've been taking on a few more school districts based off of employer partnerships. And so we're about 13 different school districts now across the state that we are doing youth apprenticeship. And we're really excited about that. Like Aaron said, we're actively served around 90 to 100 kids last year that were active apprentices with us in some given form or fashion. And so we were hoping to surpass that this year with more, but I don't know, things happened. And so we're going to do the best that we can to serve our employers and you guys to the best of our abilities. So that's just some of the current data we have right now. A few of the program benefits I wanted to chat with you guys about is when we were coming up with this concept, we thought it was really important to not only to really have it look exactly like our adult program looks in a lot of different ways, because I think there's value in being a part of this system and this kind of model of training. And so when we put this together, we were really passionate about giving you college credits, just like our adult apprentices get in our adult program. So in this program, you get 15 college credits, and you're taught by industry professionals. These courses are supported by industry professionals. And so you do actually have kind of some college level expectations that go along with the coursework that we built. But that's because what we want you to do is like really, knock it out of the park when you're on the job, right? And so you take 3 classes, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but those 3 classes are the same classes that our adults take, so that it articulates really nicely into a couple of different options for you. You also get 2,000 hours of on-the-job training with the employer that chooses to pick you up as an apprentice, and that's paid, which is a big deal. So this is kind of a long-term game. This is a long-term program, but there's some amazing benefits. You are an actual registered apprentice in the within labor and industries at a state level. So you will get a journeyman's card that's nationally recognized. And so to get that journeyman's card, there's some cool things that go along with that. One of them is that you get wage progression. So that is also built into your youth apprenticeship package. And so at about 1,000 hours, you get a wage bump, which is you're basically kind of trading skill for wages at this point. So as you scale up in apprenticeship, the idea is you start making small increases in your pay as you're getting more proficient in that job or occupation you're training to. So we felt it was pretty important that you got a little bit of a taste of what that looks like if you do the longer term apprenticeship. So those are most of the benefits. You also earn some high school credits as well. That's dependent on what school district you're in. You can ask those questions, but some of our students are doing Core Plus and they'll get math, science, and English. You'll also get a CTE credit for this as well. Yeah, and I guess our biggest thing is that we're trying to make this a career pathway, not just a job. We're not trying to lead you into a job that doesn't go anywhere. What we want you to do is just to be able to take this and make some really cool decisions about your future. So we'll kind of go on, into that a little bit more later, but yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the 2,000 hours of on-the-job training. That's probably the biggest difference of what our programs offer than others in the state. So in apprenticeship, 93% of your training is done on the job. It's not done in a traditional classroom setting. You're literally working around professionals that are showing you skills. And as you develop, as you spend more time on that shop floor, you're getting more proficient at those skills. And then 7% is that classroom learning. So if you're a really big hands-on learner and you need to see things and have people show you things to learn, this is a really a cool model for you to see and to experience and to do. So I highly encourage it for people that really thrive in those types of situations. So if you're like knock it out of the park in shop class and you do really well and your grades are really good in shop class, this might be the right kind of opportunity for you. So we call it OJT in apprenticeship. Basically all that is acronym for is on the job training. And our automation tech or our production technicians in this program, like I was kind of talking about earlier, they set up, they test, they adjust advanced manufacturing machinery and equipment. So what does that look like? You're learning about mills and you're learning about manual lathes. You're also learning about CNC mills and lathes. You're learning about how to deburr parts so that when they get to the employer, they are, or not to the employer, they get to the client, they're all finished and they look nice. You know, you don't take something out of the box and it's half done, right? So you'll learn a kind of hands-on design with CAD. So you'll learn about the kind of the software that goes behind all of that work. So I'll go to the next slide and I'll talk to you a little bit about that rotation. So you have basically these different buckets right here of work that the employer has agreed to rotate you in. So apprenticeship is all about making that well-rounded worker. So as a production technician, we want you to get exposure to a lot of different aspects of manufacturing so that you become proficient at a bunch of different things, not just one thing, right? And so, like I said, you have in this one, this is just kind of an example of what the times look like. Now, in some cases, kids will be doing a few of these different rotations, and they won't spend months at a time in these. So for instance, you might be machining some parts and then also inspecting those parts at the same time. But what we're trying to do is capture that you're getting that knowledge while you're on the job. And so you'll spend some time learning machining. You'll spend some time in the inspection. Sometimes there's inspection rooms. Sometimes you're inspecting while you're working with parts. You'll learn about assembly and do assembly. So you'll assemble different parts and pieces that are coming off the shop floor. You'll deburr. What is deburring? Deburring is taking all these little sharp edges after they come off of a mill or a lathe, and you're making sure that it's safe for somebody who may be installing that part somewhere to handle. Tooling. Picking out all the different types of tools that you'll need to make the part or to build the part or do something with the part. There's lots of tools involved in our line of work where we've got to pick it out and figure out what's going on there. And then obviously tool grinding. You learn about how to like mill different parts to different specifications that the clients want. So that's just a little bit of the on-the-job training basics. You also have a little bit of what we call bench work. And bench work is basically, when I started on a shop floor, I had to sweep the floors. I had to organize my tool chest. I had to do just essential functions to make the shop run smoothly. So that's kind of a catch-all bucket for that type of stuff. You'll also learn a bit about shop maintenance, like how do you keep those machines running at optimal performance so that you're able to constantly be making parts and some of those types of things. So you'll learn how to set up those machines proficiently. So those are the types of buckets of work that you'll be filling out a little daily tracker so that we're capturing that and making sure that you're getting well trained while you're on the job. So.
All right, so the other piece of the apprenticeship is that classroom time. So most of your time is spent, that 93% is spent on the job with your employer. And then you also have classes that support learning for what you're going to be doing on the job. So how this kind of works is that there's 4 different classes. You'll take 3 of them. That's really dependent on the school that you're going to. Since this is statewide, we just wanted to make sure that we're covering all of these different classes. And it really just depends on what the local employers are saying that they need, what's available in your high school shop. But we'll kind of go over all of these. And each class is 5 credits. So you'll get that total of 15. So the first class is Precision Machining 1, which is where you get those fundamental machining skills, and just kind of go over the basics of using like manual tools, learning how to use manual mills and lathes. And then you'll take Precision Machining 2, which gets a little bit more in depth, where you learn some of those manual machining techniques. Learning how to use milling machines, drill presses, lathes, things like that. And the third class option is engineering drawings, where you'll learn how to interpret and read blueprints and technical drawings and how those apply to what you're doing on the job. And then the fourth option is CNC, setup and operation. And in that class, you'll learn how to run CNC machines, kind of like an introduction to learn basic programming in them, how they run, some of their equipment theory and things like that. And like I said earlier, this will be dependent on the school that you're in. So if you have questions for us on what classes you'll specifically be taking, you can reach out to Tracy or me, depending on what school you're at, and we can let you know which 3 classes of those 4 you would be taking. So next we want to just talk about kind of, so what are the qualifications? What are we looking for when we're looking for a good apprentice? And there's a couple different things that we take, that we ask you to give us. So we'll talk a little bit later about how to apply online, where you'll submit all of these things, but here's kind of what we're looking for. So first we'll need a copy of your transcripts. And we do look for a 2.0 GPA. Let us know if you're struggling. We'll talk about that later too. But we're looking for that just to make sure that you're, going to your classes, you're doing well, especially in those CTE and shop classes if you've taken them before. And we also look at attendance, mostly because we want to make sure that you're going to show up to your job. That's really important when you're going to work, that we know that you're the kind of person that's going to show up to class. That way we know you're going to show up to your job. It's extremely important. Part of my job is to talk to employers too, and that's the number one thing they tell me they struggle with, is just having people show up to work. And, we understand that if things happen like, illness, family emergencies, things like that, talk to us about it if that's something where your attendance might not look so great. But what we're really trying to avoid is that you just don't show up to class. And if, we just want to make sure that we're sending the students to employers that are going to show up to work. So again, any of these things that you're concerned about, you can always talk to us about it. And then we look for passing Algebra 1 and I believe freshman English, correct me if I'm wrong, just kind of for those basic math skills that you'll need while you're on the job. And then we also ask you to submit, when you're applying, a recommendation from one of your teachers or counselors, someone who's going to speak for you and say that they've seen how you work in class and they would recommend you to be an apprentice. We always like to see someone kind of outside who's seen you and can recommend you to the job. You'll write a personal essay, which we give you a document. It's 4 questions where we really get to know you and who you are. This is super important because we send it to your employer or to different employers that are looking over you. And this is where they really get to know you. We ask you why you're interested in being a youth apprentice, kind of about any projects that you've completed. And when you're writing the essay, really take your time on it, because before the employer interviews you, this is kind of their snapshot of who you are, the hobbies that you like, projects that you've done. So take some time answering each of those questions just to make sure we get a good picture of who you are. Another thing you'll submit is your resume. Tracy and Aaron will show us later where we have templates for resumes if you don't have one, and we can always help you make one if you're struggling with it. On your resume, you're going to want to make sure you put any CTE classes you've taken, you know, shop classes, any volunteer or work experience you've had before, after school activities. Again, this is another way for those employers to get to know you. Don't go too crazy on it. You know, we don't need like 3 pages of it, but 1 page that really summarizes your experience in school and any of your after school activities that we can give to the employers. And then you do need to be 16 years old or older. This is because of, you know, state laws of how old you can be to work. So you do need to be at least 16 so you can do that on the job training portion of the apprenticeship. And then last, but definitely not least, is reliable transportation. And this is important because one part of your apprenticeship, the biggest part, is going to work. And we need to make sure that you can get there. So there's lots of different ways that you can get to work, right? You can drive yourself. That's an option if you have a good, reliable ride from your family or friends. Really what we're looking for is, like, if you end up needing to take the bus, talk to us just so we can help you. We want to make sure that when we hook you up with an employer, you can get to work. Did I miss anything there, Tracy? Okay.
Good. The teacher recommendation, there is a link that we send out to your teachers, and when Erin and I walk you through the application later on, I'll show you some examples of that. That was good.
Also, I just wanted to mention that, like, we also, a lot of our employers, most of our employers do drug testing. So just to put that on there, it's not, we don't put it down as a requirement, but know that if you're working around machinery or parts, that's something that employers will do before you officially get hired on, is that they'll do a drug test. So if that's something that you've partaken in sometime, I would maybe cut that out. Yeah. So what you had a good phrase, didn't you, Tracy? What is it?
If it flies, you can't be high.
Right. That's definitely absolutely true. But yeah, make sure that you are, you know, if that's something you struggle with, have conversations with your parents, school counselors, or us, so that we can help get you help there. But before you get hired, you got to be clean. So
this is, yeah, that's I always like saying when Bree and I are in person saying that, and the facial expressions when we talk about, let's talk about drug tests, and there's always like this, or a couple people poke each other on that. So and I'll show you that later on when we go through the hiring thing, application process. This is the timeline to look at, and just here's a good way to look at how apprenticeship works. So apprenticeship on a scale of 100% looks like this. 93% of your time is what we call OJT, on the job training. That is what Bree was talking about earlier with the job rotations, all the things you'd be doing as a job. 7%, test on math here, 7% is what we call RSI, the related supplemental instruction. That's the college level test that Heather mentioned earlier. And that 7% of RSI time is there to help supplement the 93% of on-the-job training that you're going to get. So down below, Erin Farrell is awesome and made us this really great snapshot of what a year looks like for you. Now, it's going to be skewed a little bit because of COVID-19, and this is a big thing, is that Bree is going to talk to us a little bit more about updates and timelines at the end there. So right now, generally in springtime is our enrollment piece. You know, in the beginning of the year, we got to go around and do some open houses with some of the schools out there and do some talks there. We missed Snow Isle, we missed Renton, so you got a lot of great Renton people here on the call that's there. So I keep saying, sorry about that. So now what we're looking at is the summers when you're going to start working, but we're going to also in the summer now start to do some things, meet and greets with the students, boot camps we'll hear about a little bit later on. But when the school year starts, in summers when you're going to really be working. And here's a couple things about working in the summer. In the state of Washington, if you're 16 and 17, you can work up to 48 hours per LNI's teen worker safety. This is a time for you to get as many hours as you can. They like it for when you work. Your parents like it when you work because you get a little bit more of a paycheck to help with needed income. So again, that's the time for you to go through and clock your on-the-job training hours. When the school year starts, it's a little bit different because you're going to be then going part-time work and then also during your classes, which I'll talk about in another slide here in just a second. In the state of Washington, if you're 16 or 17, you can work up to 20 hours during a school year. However, we do have a part that you do sign up for. It's a variance letter part that's a little section on the student parent school authorization form that says you can work up to 28 hours. Now, most of our students during the school year are going to work about 10 to 20 hours depending on the program, and I'll show you that in just a second. But again, I don't think there's many, Bree and Heather, I don't think we have many students that work at that 28. We have got a few rock stars that do, but there are also some students that are their senior year and they don't really have a big heavy workload of school classes, so they're doing that. Now, when you're done next year, whether you're a junior or senior, and if you're a senior and you graduate, or you're a junior and you're getting ready for your senior year, that next summer, then you're just going to be working. So you've got, during that school year, all of your RSI college classes will be done. So those 3 classes that you take will be done during the school year. That next summer, you're just going to work until you clock your 2,000 hours. Now, here's the thing with the 2,000 hours. The 2,000 hours, there's not a deadline. Like, you have to have them done in a certain amount of time. Everybody works at different paces. People start their jobs at different paces. And that's one of the things we get talked about a lot of times during the school year is the parents worried about them getting finished in a certain amount of time. In the case of a student is going away for college, or if they're going away to do something else and they don't finish their 2,000 hours, we'll work with the student case by case if they can apply for early completion. They're at 1,500 hours. Or if they're not, we look at getting them a certificate saying they did do, a substantial amount of time and classes, because, we want to recognize you for the efforts you've put into class that's there. Now, see if you're a senior, you graduate, you're working towards your 2,000 hours and you're like, hey, I really want to go into an adult apprenticeship. Then we look at with our business developers, what classes are available for you to start your adult apprenticeship. And if you are a senior, you're just working to finish your 2,000 hours, and I work towards looking at after a senior year. If you want to be an adult apprentice, we look at those classes afterwards. So that's kind of a snapshot year that you're seeing there. And again, we're going to send the recording of this out to all of our people who are part of this call, so then you can see that afterwards. I think our next slide should be about in school. Now, with the production technician apprenticeship, we have 2 programs. We have an in-school model, and then we have an out-of-school model. Both are going to give you the same class, the same work experience. They're just different in the way that you take your classes. So when I'm saying in school, this is the part where you're taking those RSI classes. That's that 7% class of 7% of the time that you're taking there. So here's how it looks. And I do believe with our production technician day classes, we have Snow Isle, we have Puyallup High School, we have West Valley over in Yakima. Bree, did I hit all 3? Good. Heather hit all 3. Okay. So for Puyallup and West Valley, what they do is on Mondays, they do either the morning or the afternoon, they're doing their class time. So this is their 7% 4-hour class that they're taking with their instructors. So Tim Sorensen over at West Valley and Andy McClure at Puyallup High School. Now, the other part of the day, then they're taking their regular classes. So taking 3 periods regular through their schools. Some cases, some students go to running start classes, or they just stay at their brick and mortar high school. It's just up to the schedule. For Tuesday through Friday, what happens then is it's like a running start program, to where you'd spend 3 periods at your home high school and then the other 3 periods at your employers. So in this case, you're doing your apprenticeship work and your high school work right in the same day. So you should be done after school. You've got activities and sports. It doesn't really interact with some of them. However, some employers will ask you to come back after school, which is really cool if they've got a lot of work coming on. There's been a few times our students have went afterwards. At Snow Isle actually has 2 days that they do the class. They do their classes on Mondays and Tuesdays, 2 hours and 2 hours. And they do the afternoon section. So you'd go to you take it like a regular Snow Isle class, which is our skill center up in Everett, Washington. And so they are going to their home schools for half of the day. And then on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, instead of going to Snow Isle for that afternoon session, they go to their employer for the rest of the time there. So again, it's a lot like a running start schedule. And this kind of gives you a map out of what it looks like there. The after school program then is offered for a lot of the programs here on the west side of the state. We have an Everett Snohomish consortium. So a lot of those students are here from Everett, Sequoia, Jackson, Cascade. Down in Tacoma, our Tacoma schools, I saw Lincoln on the chat session that's there. Renton, all you Renton students, Lindbergh, Renton, and Hazen High School. So this is what it looks like for the after school special. I don't know why I said that. It was rummy from all these calls. Anyways, So this class, that 7% RSI class, is an after-school class. So this is pretty much like having an after-school job that you'd be taking. So your regular school day is going to be just like you're used to. Then one night a week, you're going to take that RSI class. For Tacoma, it's on Tuesday nights, and it says 3 to 7. I think theirs is actually 3:30 to 7:30. For Renton, it's on Thursday, and Thursdays goes from 3 to 7. Everett right now, Everett's actually taking class, Everett Snohomish. So if you're here from Snohomish, I know I saw David on there from our Glacier Peak classes. Fridays, they're taking their classes right now from 1:30 to 4:35. And that was a change that we did mid-class and mid-year, and the students really liked it. But we usually have that class on Tuesday nights, and that goes from 3:30 to 7:30. So if you've applied through the Everett School District or through Snohomish School District, we'll talk to you guys a little bit later about what that schedule looks like. Most of the students had half days on Fridays, and it worked better. So here's a couple things to think about with the after-school program for your schedules. If your school supports a worksite learning program, you can actually get credit for replacing a couple of classes during the day to go to work. And how that looks is for every 180 hours you work, you get a half a credit. And this is good for any jobs. There's a lot of students that are working at, Fred Meyer, Safeway, McDonald's that are getting worksite learning credit for this. So whenever school you're going through, you will talk about that. And at the end of the call, Terry Derrick from Renton is actually going to talk a little bit more about that support. So we'll hear about how that looks for worksite learning. Great opportunity, especially if you're a senior and you're looking at, I don't take a lot of classes. I only take 1 or 2 classes. It's a good chance for you to get some extra hours in that case there. Now, here's the thing also about the after school program. If you're someone who has a lot of activities after school, it's probably not going to be the best fit for you. So talk to myself or Heather if that's the case. For the in-school models, it's a little bit easier, but the after school models, it's a little bit harder. So, and if you look, that's a lot of information about the schedules. We can talk to you one-on-one about that. Bree, articulation.
Me? Oh, okay. Well, there's a couple different things that you can do after the program. And so we wanted to make sure that this is not just, that this isn't just a pipeline into apprenticeship. Now, of course, we would love to have you for another 3 years with AJAC. But we also kind of want to talk to you a little bit about what you can do after the program to further your career in manufacturing. So a few options. Number one, you can stay with the company and move into our adult apprenticeship programs, which we would all love to have you long-term as apprentices with us. We take really good care of all of our apprentices. So it's great when we get to have you over 3 or 4 years with us. We get to really get a personal relationship with each one of our apprentices. And we're all like your cheerleading section. It's great. So you can go into our machining occupation. So you can go into our machining program, which is 8,000 hours of on-the-job training, and it is how many college credits?
60, I believe.
60 college credits. Thank you. Well, the cool thing about being a production technician is you can use your 2,000 hours that you've done as a youth production technician and your 15 college credits, and those all articulate over to the machining program super seamlessly. So instead of, it basically shaves a year off of that 4-year program, that machining program. So that's really, really cool. You also could, if you think like, hey, I actually like fixing things more than I like making the things, you can also go into our industrial maintenance occupation and our apprenticeship there, and you'll get those college credits. So some of those college credits will transfer over, and those hours as well. It's obviously not as seamless, but most of those classes and those hours will transfer over. So really cool that you're able to kind of shave off some time in both of our programs if you want to stay with us. You can also use your college credits at the local technical college or university. We have a strong partner. We're strong partners with your local community and technical colleges across the state. And so in all of the different programs that we're talking about today, you're gonna get college credits, community college credits for the work that you're doing, that college or that classroom work that you're doing. And so you can sit down and talk with any of our staff about like, what can I do with these credits if I want to stay on with the technical college in your local community. And there's some really cool programs that you can do with them. We're also working to get core credits recognized with some college engineering programs, specifically WSU and Central. We have some kids that are wanting to become mechanical engineers after this experience. And so we're trying to get those machining courses that they've already done lots of machining with us checked off of the books. So we are working with the colleges right now as those kids go through the programs for that to articulate over for all of our kids, which is great. And then the other option is you can stay employed and work with your employers to progress in the company. We have a lot of amazing employers with amazing benefits that you get. And so some of our employers have education incentives where you can stay working with them, and also they'll pay for some of your college training at night. They'll obviously, most of our employers will pay for your apprenticeship classes with us, which is really cool. And then there's some internal training programs that they have where you can definitely kind of climb the ladder. And so your job doesn't end at that 2,000 hours. When you get that job, you keep that job. And so you can do a lot with just where you get placed. So those are kind of the different options that we have right now that are kind of exciting. Okay. So the next slide here is updated timeline. Yes, well, we are all living in a new time frame here with COVID and a lot of uncertainty, but I wanted to try to give you some clarity on where we're at as a program, so that you guys at least have some expectations of where we're trying to go. And so I think all of us are very committed to having very candid conversations with you as we go through the next few months of this. And feel free at any point if you're feeling anxiety or need to ask more questions about how to navigate your future. We'll try to be as transparent as we can with you as we know more information, as more things come out and more clarity comes out that's available to us. So right now, because we didn't get to do all the parent info nights and we didn't get to meet with you, and we know that you don't have access to your school counselors and your school advisors, our application deadline is May 31st. So we extended that out quite a bit just to give you guys some time to work with us and your school staff to get this in. Even if you don't get all of the different documents in, just fill out the information on the online portion so that we know you're out there in the universe and we can connect with you and get all of the different pieces of your packet done. And we're happy to help walk you through that one-on-one. Or do whatever it takes to get that completed. So don't make that an obstacle for you. If you're stressed out about all the different pieces and you don't know how to pull it all together, that's okay. Just throw your name in the hat, get into our online portal, and just fill out your information. The next thing is that in June of 2020, we want to just do virtual meet and greets with those that have applied. I want you to get to know our staff. We also want to get to know you and what your goals are. And also just kind of figure out what kind of companies that you're excited about possibly working for. And then also we have really good relationships with our employers, and we definitely try to match you guys with the right type of employer that has the things that you're excited about and things that they're excited to train you for. So stay tuned for us reaching out to you just to do a Zoom call like this, or just talk to you on the phone just to get to know you a little bit better. It's also good to start practicing because we may be doing some virtual interviewing. I don't know what the future holds, but we can all practice on each other right now in this whole new realm to just make sure that we put the best possible foot forward when we put you in front of our awesome employers. So in July, we're gonna do a virtual boot camp. It'll probably be around 30 hours of just online training. And what this is typically, it's an OSHA 10 course where you get certified. You get actually a little card. It's not kind of like a food handler's permit. You get a card that says I've completed OSHA 10. And that's what that stands for, is it's Occupational Safety and Health Administration card. And it just, it tells employers that I've gone through a 10-hour course. I know how to be safe on a shop floor. I know how to recognize safety hazards and report them properly. And I'm aware of safety at all times. And we don't want to put you in a situation where you don't know how to be safe or how to point out potential safety hazards to your bosses, so that you're constantly working in a safe environment. So we want to make sure that you get that done. And there's an online class that we'll do with you to do that. We also want to make sure that you have first aid, CPR, and AED training. We go through how to be a good apprentice. Sometimes this is your first job. You don't know about all those different things that come along with a first job. So like, let's just say, you know, I had a car that somewhat worked in high school that I saved up money for, and my car tire blew, and I'm literally supposed to be at work in 10 minutes. So what do you do? So we talked through different backup options of how to call an employer and tell them you're going to be late, or heaven forbid something else happens, like who do you call and what does that look like and when do I call? And then sometimes when you get your first paycheck, you're kind of aghast because somebody took out a bunch of money. Well, those are taxes, and that's how adulting works, my friends. And so we'll talk about all the things getting taken out of your checks and what they mean, if that's something you need to have a conversation about. So we try to go over that. Plus, what does it mean to be an apprentice? What are your responsibilities? Every month you'll have to submit some hours so that we know that you're getting rotated and different things like that. So we'll make sure that you're very prepared before you go on that shop floor with that employer. And so that's what our boot camp's going to be. So right now, typically in June and July, we're placing kids into apprenticeship opportunities. They're getting interviewed. We're going on tours, learning about local manufacturers. At that point, then they go on, you usually go on a tour, then you go on an interview, and then we hope that you get hired. Well, right now, we're not able to really go anywhere unless you're an essential workforce. That's, employers are not wanting to have extra people on the shop floor. So right now, when we've been talking with employers, when they've been gracious enough to talk to us, they're saying that they're really still committed to the program, but are willing to, look at kids, have you guys out on tours and interview you guys in September and October. So that's just because they want to get their workforce back to work. They also want to make sure that their workforce is working safe in the new COVID rules. And then they're willing to take you guys on and also make sure they know what that looks like for them and you. So I know that throws off your timeline a little bit, but I think that's pretty realistic in where we're at today as to where employers are willing to kind of meet us halfway there, right? And then we have a signing day on September, I think it's 30th or 31st at the ShowWare Center. Last year it was massive. It's a day to celebrate that you guys are going into apprenticeship, that you're getting signed by employers. We're also going to use that space to do a kind of an employer fair. So if you haven't gotten picked up during this time, it's a fair where employers are going to come out and possibly meet you. So it'll look a little bit different this year, but we've got a lot of cool things in the mix for this next year. It looks a little different. So yeah. Again, I just kind of went over all this. I forgot that we made a slide about this, but yeah, this is what summer boot camp's going to look like. And so just expect that we'll be walking through this with you as a staff. We'll try not to make it boring. We'll try to make it as fun as possible. I don't know how much I can tell you about safety training. Any safety training I've ever taken is really boring. And I know it's painful, but it's so important that you guys listen to it and you take it in, because there are situations, and I've been in situations on a shop floor where I've had to tell my supervisor that something's unsafe. And so we really want to make sure you guys focus on that. And we'll make it as fun as we can. But sometimes you just got to get through that stuff, right, to get to the greater stuff. So anyways, that's what summer boot camps are going to look like.
Hey, Bree, how about those last 3 bullet points? I'm not too sure how much you touched on those in the previous slide, but ATS and the Mentorship Matters training program that we offer at AJAC, I think it'd be great to bring that to the light for the folks.
So we do a training called Mentorship Matters, and what you guys will do is you'll get a certificate, but what it's a training program that our employers also have their their shop mentors go through, but it's just learning how to communicate on a shop floor effectively with those that are going to be showing you skills. And so Mentorship Matters, we're going to show you how to be a good apprentice and how to sometimes you'll have really good chemistry with one mentor you'll have on a shop floor, and other times not so great. Sometimes you have to work at it. We work with lots of different types of people on when we work. as an adult. And so we have to figure out how to get that information out. So we're going to train you on how to, like, you know, there's lots of different generations of people working in the workforce, and how do you interact with all those different unique people? And so we'll go through a little bit of that training. ATS, this is our apprenticeship tracking system. We'll show you how to go log on and just clock your hours online so that we can report those to the state. And so when you hit that 2,000 hours or even that 1,000 hours, we can tell your employer, hey, give that kid a wage bump, or yes, you just completed. So we want to make sure that we're, you know, following all those rules, and we're making sure that we know what you're doing. And then apprenticeship paperwork, you actually get registered into as an apprentice for the state of Washington. And so we'll do that paperwork with you. And so you know all of the different responsibilities that you have as an apprentice, and then you know what your employer is signing up for to do with you. So.
And it also might be worth it during boot camp this summer. I know we haven't had this conversation yet, but we also have some brand new on-the-job training booklets that we have not even shown anyone yet. And Bree, do you have any floating by? Uh-oh, it's blue. It's blending in with the background.
Yeah, it blends with the background.
You can't see it.
You guys in your backgrounds.
But more or less, AJAC
Kinda.
designed about a 60-page booklet that really creates that on-the-job training experience much better for apprentices, particularly our young adults, in terms of logging your hours and understanding safety protocols and the on-the-job training rotation. And we understand that there's a lot of information we're giving you today and that you will continue to get throughout the apprenticeship. How about we pack it into a nice booklet that's easy to read, something you kind of carry with you for the next 2 years. So that's something that we did not mention in our webinar on Tuesday, but that is something that we're really looking. We're really.
That was
looking forward to
Aaron's
using it.
passion project. So he was like, "Make sure you show that booklet."
That's my baby. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. I think it's really unique for this upcoming cohort.
Super helpful.
So this is frequently asked. We're almost done, and then we'll wrap it up and show you guys how to apply online. Frequently asked questions. This is some of the questions that we get to ask. Some of it has been talked about, and then I got a couple questions that were asked today on the webinar. When will I start my job as a youth apprentice? We said, you know, typically it's in the summer, but now with our employers, like Bree mentioned, we're looking at September, October. Some of you guys might start in August. And we have some employers actually now that are saying, hey, can we come look at students? It's so odd right now. Aerospace is a little bit kind of wonky, but there's other advanced manufacturing companies that are still going. And we've got, I think, what do we have about? We're at 65% right now of our students are still working around the state for our current programs. So we've got some employers have been asking us about that. How do I submit my transcripts and teacher recommendation while school is closed? That's great, because we had a question earlier on the chat line that we had a parent that said, hey, we applied, but we didn't see the essay, or how do we do this now with the schools are closed? So I'm going to show you again where the documents are for that. But one of the things that you do, and we've been kind of in this weird hurry up and wait kind of line there, but Heather and I are going to go through the online applications over the next couple of weeks and reach out to everybody individually. If you're missing a document, we're just going to send it to you. Honestly, the best way to get the stuff in is just back and forth with Heather and I, and we can get those done. We actually can talk to your teachers at school and send them the Google document link that is just, it's a really quick survey about that. We also talk to counselors a little bit on that case, so we can work with you on that situation. And there was also the question about, I didn't get the essay. It's a 4-question essay, and I'll show you the template later on. And generally, if we find that you applied and you don't have the essay on there, we just send you a sample of it, so then that way you can do it there on your own. Is the apprenticeship program this year going to be different because of COVID-19? I like to throw this one to Bree. How does apprenticeship look? She kind of mentioned it earlier, you know, without saying the new normal, because we're all tired of hearing that. But she did talk about, you know, we're a little bit delayed when it comes to employers hiring, but you know, that's one thing that LNI is doing right now is talking about social distancing and manufacturing. But Bree, you know, if you want to touch on that real quick.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're still getting more guidance as we open into different phases across the state. I know we're about ready to hopefully go into phase 2 at some point. And there's guidance about how we're supposed to interact. I know that employers are getting guidance on how to keep their workforce safe. So it's going to look different. And the minute you put in your application and we have a packet, we will be actively looking for opportunities when employers tell us that they want, they need a workforce, or they need, you know, to hire some people. We're gonna use those packets to like have a conversation with them about youth apprenticeship when it's appropriate. So the sooner you can get those into us, the better. And like I said, we're not going to make any promises that we're going to get people placed this summer. It could happen. And anytime we have a conversation where that could happen, you better believe that we're going to be very responsive to that. However, you probably will start class in September with your apprenticeship instructor. And we'll be working actively as a whole team to get you in front of employers September, October, November, just because of what the conversations we've had with employers that have been able to slow down and talk to us at the moment. So yes, all these employers want to make sure that their workforce is safe. So there will probably be some social distancing that's happening even in our college level classes where we're having to teach apprentices hands-on training right now. We have to have like a 5-to-1 ratio of teacher to kids or teachers to students. There's a whole like wipe down protocol of how that all looks. And so if you can imagine it, the employers are trying to juggle what all these new kind of recommendations are from a statewide level, and then get their workforce back to work. And then they're going to try to have to think about like, what would a youth do on that shop floor? And and we also want to make sure that you guys are safe and you're not, that you're not bringing things home to potentially grandma and grandpa or mom and dad. And so we're just going to be really, really trying to be really, really respectful of everybody's kind of situation right now. So it'll look different, but manufacturing has always stayed very strong, even during times of recession. So know that is kind of a hopeful thing in manufacturing. So it's just, when can we go back to work and do it safely? And as the governor gives us more guidance, we will of course interpret that and then send those updates out to you guys. And so we plan on having more check-ins like this in June, July, August, and kind of through the summer. As we know more information, we will actually convene you guys to make sure that you are fully aware and fully have all the information you can to make the best decisions that you guys need. Okay.
I want to be, hold real quick, Erin. I want to be sensitive of people's time real quick. So we are at 5:27. We said we're at 5:30. We're probably going to go about to 5:35. So I'm going to kind of rush through a couple of these things. What if I struggle through my GPA, or is that what you're going to say, Erin, about time?
Oh, I was just going to say that our RSI classes right now are online. So AJAC has the capability. I know we talk about what is my job like with COVID, but also what are my AJAC classes like with COVID. So I just wanted to throw that in as well.
Yeah. Right. What if I struggle with my GPA? Heather mentioned that earlier when you apply. If you're at like a 1.7, 1.8, you're trying to, and your current GPA looks good, just talk to us. That's the huge thing. Somebody in the chat thing said, if I have more questions, which I think is the next slide, Erin, is that correct? Yes. So again, here's the representatives. Heather covers the Eastern Washington. I cover Western Washington. This is our information. Please send us an email if you've got more questions. We're going to send this link back out to everybody that was here today. So if you have to jump off and you missed a couple things, that's okay. At the end, we'll do that. Someone had asked about sports, and I'm going to address that when we go through the hiring thing, but here's a couple other questions. A student asked, if I've already done OSHA, do I have to do it again? No, you can pass that. However, if you'd like to take the class again, you go super smarty. How do I apply? Someone had asked, it sounds like everything's online. We're going to show you that in a minute. Someone had asked, hey, I'm in an exchange student program. I'm only here for a year. Can I just do 1,000 hours? Unfortunately, it is a 2,000 hour program. But if this is really interesting to you guys, and you're a little bit worried about if it's a fit, but I really want to do that, talk to us one-on-one to see about that fit. And I kind of talked a little bit about this earlier though. If one of the families said, we applied, but we didn't get the essay or the parent or the educator recommendation. Heather and I'll work with you guys one-on-one to make sure your profiles are all done there. This other one came in, if students aren't able to work this summer, how will that affect the 2,000 hour requirement? Totally not. That's okay. Again, the 2,000 hour requirement is at your own pace. So there's not like it's a deadline. It's a go at your own time to finish the 2,000 hours. The only thing that's really that structured part of when you have to be done is your classes. That's the RSI classes that happen during the school year. So all school year next year, if you apply, you're going to be in those classes. So that's a huge part of it. I think I covered most of it, and I think there's one more Q&A, and someone asked about sports. Oh, we'll do that during the hiring thing. Here's the other thing. If you are a Renton student, we have the lovely Terry Derrick with the Renton School District, who, when I'm done going through how to apply, she's going to pop on. We'll promote her to a panelist, And she's going to talk to you a little bit more about her role and how the Renton School District handles those work parts that are there. So we'll have Erin promote her there. If you want to stay on and listen, that's fine. But then at that time, we'll excuse everybody else that's part of that. So Erin, I think we're ready to go through and look at the online portal. So how do we apply? We have the coolest website. I'm saying that because Aaron's on the call and he developed it. But Aaron, show them how our website is ajactraining.org. And Aaron's going to show you how to get to the hiring thing page. It is a lot like if you apply for McDonald's, Safeway, Starbucks online. Hiring thing is the same portal. It is a, real quick, while he's beforehand, it is a one and done website. So if you mess up, it's okay. Heather and I will still like you and we'll work with you on any documents or anything that you're missing. Aaron, take it away.
All right. So right up here on the top, we have some tabs, and there's one that is called Youth. So if you click on this, this will take you to our Youth Apprenticeship webpage. And on the Youth Apprenticeship webpage, we have a section for employers, a section for apprentices, a section for schools, press and media. You can watch our signing day video from 2019. And then here's the application that we're talking about. So if you click on application, it's going to take you to a company called Hiring Thing. And Hiring Thing has a partnership with AJAC, and we use their portal to collect all of your information so we can package that, as Tracy was talking about, and then employers can make an easy decision on how they want to go about it. So this is ajac.hiringthing.com, and Tracy can walk you through this as I kind of scroll down.
Thanks, Aaron. We should go on a road show together. So here's the open positions. If you scroll down, we're looking at production technician, and it says Washington State, Washington. But if you click on the learn more part, it shows you the different school districts and schools that offer our program. So there's West Valley, Tacoma School District, Snohomish, Everett, all of those great schools with a lot of you guys here today. And just a note, Bree put the link on the chat for the AJAChiringthing.com for you to access this. Thanks for doing that, Bree. Go ahead and scroll down because I'm going to show you a couple things. So a lot of the stuff we talked about is outlined here. So take a couple minutes to read this, but keep scrolling down a little bit more to where it says minimum qualifications. So Heather walked through this. That was a really good tutorial of that part. One of the things that we didn't talk about is you do have to be able to work in the United States. So you have to have documentation, social security card, green card, birth certificate. There's a lot of like international military things that do require you to be able to work in the United States. As you scroll down, it talks a little bit more about the process and everything, but required documents to submit. I wanted to focus on that real quick. So resumes, and Heather mentioned earlier, we do have some template resumes. This is great. This is actually the resume samples that we use for our pre-apprenticeship. And this is feedback that actually Bree developed these. I stole them from her earlier on. Before we worked together, I was like, can I use your sample resume? But this is stuff that the advanced manufacturing industries have said, hey, this is how we want resumes to look. So we have that outlined for you there. Again, Heather said, you don't need a long resume, 1 page. We want to know what you did in school. Personal essay, that's the template that's there. You can click on. Instead of making you write a whole 1-page dissertation about why you want to be a machinist, there's 4 questions. Tell us about yourself. Tell us a project you've worked on. It could even be if you built a fence. We want to know what's kind of hands-on transferable skills you have. Why an employer should hire you. And then a little bit more about why you want to go into this industry. The educator recommendation. It's an online recommendation. Again, it's a Google form. We send the link to your educators or counselors. Sometimes students will just send it right away to them, and that's really cool. But they, they have, if you have a paper already, say if teachers already filled out a recommendation for you, that's great, because then we can use that in the case. It says official high school transcript at the end. It's because we do have to prove your GPA, and then also that you have passed at least Algebra 1. If you are not at a 2.0 GPA, that's okay. We put you on an academic suspension kind of thing for us, so you're good to go. Now, after you read all this, sounds good, you go back up to the top and then click apply for this position. And it's really easy to do. This is, again, it's one and done. If you mess up, we'll still like you. We'll work with you afterwards. If you apply twice, that's totally fine also. Personal information goes in the top part. And then as we go down to these 2 forms right here, whoops, go back up. Oh, there we go. Resume and any additional files. You at least have to have a resume. So if you're like, oh, I don't have the essay yet, or I don't have the recommendation, that's fine. We need you at least to upload your resume. So you just click and drag it over, or you just upload it there. Now where it says such additional files, such as letters of recommendation, click and drag those over there. Some computers, it's a little finicky. So if it doesn't let you do that, we'll email back and forth and get those forms. If you have any work samples you want to send in, that's great too. If you want to show some employers some stuff, that's great. Please limit it to about 4 or 5. We had a couple students that sent me 15 pictures. I'm like, whoa. And I felt like I did nothing in school when I saw the stuff that the student did. It's amazing. If you scroll down, it says a couple other questions. What school district are you currently in? So find your school district that's there. All of them are listed. Underneath there, it does say your personal information, birthday. You need to prove that you're at least 16 or going to be 16 by this time you start the program. Clothing size, because as you notice, Aaron, myself, Bree, Heather, do you have swag on? I've got my AJAC swag on. So Aaron likes to swag you out with a lot of cool AJAC stuff. So I don't know your clothing size. Here's your parents or guardian information for your emergency contact information that's there. High school level, current high school level. Have you completed Algebra 1? Yes or no? What's your current GPA? Let's see what the cumulative is right now. Transportation, Heather talked about that. I can't stress it enough. Attendance is a huge thing. If you've got bad attendance in the past, but you really want to do this, you got to make that commitment to yourself to change. So we want to know how you plan to get to job. Work availability, mark that there, because that's what we want to see, you know, when you're available for work. That's going to be a huge thing. Go down, will you be able to work 15 to 20 hours a week during the school year? Can you work 40 hours? If you have other jobs, you can put in the next field, but don't worry about it if you don't. Scroll down, miscellaneous. Have you attended a youth apprenticeship info session? If you're with us here, you have, yay. If you have seen one earlier this year, and there's a few school districts who were able to do that, that's great. This summer, do I have more than 1 week of vacation planned? Well, really this summer, does anybody have vacation planned? Nobody does. But if you do, we want to know what's going on so we can work with you with some of that boot camp schedule there. Counselor information. I'm going to touch base with your counselors to see, make sure this is a good thing. If you don't have their email or their phone number, that's okay. At least give us a number. We can reach out to them. So this is where the question came up about sports earlier. Do you plan on participating in following programs next year? ASB, sports, athletics, after-school activities. With the after-school programs, it becomes a little bit more of a harder fit when it comes into play with sports. If you're in a heavy fall sport, it might be a little harder. Now it's going to look a little different because we're going to just be seeing employers and everything this fall. But if you have a spring sport, by that time that you're working and you establish a relationship with your employer, it's not that hard. But if you're someone who has ASB activities and a lot of stuff after school, it might not be a good fit. So in this case, I always tell, when I talk to students about that, work with Heather and I. Heather, your programs are in school for West Valley, but for over here on the west side of the state, if you're like, I really like everything I heard, I do play sports, talk to me individually. I'm going to walk through your schedule and see to make sure if this is something that we can fit in there. So that kind of answers the sports question that's there. Career and technical education classes. We want to know what kind of career and tech classes you've taken. That's cool. You know, that's some of the stuff that you've done there. And then if you keep going there, down to the bottom, where did you hear about us? The EO statement, that's typical thing. And I have one teacher that said, Kathy Ross, what if you started an application and it was submitted incomplete? Should I reapply? Yes, go ahead and reapply. We have a few of them that are double up. It's no problem. Heather and I are the ones who look at it. You can go through and reapply, or send an email to either Heather or myself and say, hey, listen, I accidentally applied a little bit and I messed up something. I need to reapply. And we can always add documents in there. So if you're missing documents, don't worry about it. We can add that on there. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty simple. It takes honestly about 10-15 minutes to apply for the whole thing. You can read through it beforehand so you get an idea that's there. So that is pretty much it. Thank you for being here tonight. Thanks for listening. And again, those of you who have applied before and are just kind of waiting, thank you for your patience. It's been a little bit of a weird time for everybody trying to figure this out. So we're back now. We kind of have more of a plan and we're ready to go and get you guys this great experience.